nombre de la Asamblea General
On
tengo el
behalf
honor
of the
de dar
General
la
Assembly,
bienvenida a las
I have the
Naciones
honor to
Unidas al
welcome to the United
excelentísimo
Nations
señor
His
Mikhail
Excellency
Sahakashvili,
Mikhail Sahakashvili,
presidente de Georgia, y
President
lo
of
invito a
Georgia,
dirigir la
and to
palabra a la
invite him to
Asamblea.
address the Assembly.
Muchas gracias, señora presidenta. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it is always a great honor for me to address this great Assembly of the United Nations. The Assembly gives us a unique opportunity to debate key challenges of the world of our time and identify and confront the problems that our nations are facing. It is a moment of collective reflection, and it should be the moment of truth. 20 months after the desperate act of a young Tunisian citizen that sent shocks to the world and generated so many hopes all around the world, many people now happen to have doubts. Some are telling us that the images of liberation and joy seen around the world have been replaced by broken promises and many people and despair and chaos, that the world was better off when the less people were free, that the international system was more stable when less societies were open. I came here today to tell the opposite. I came here today to make this case for open societies. After the horrible attack on the US consulate in Benghazi and the death of Ambassador Chris Timmons, I called American ambassador in Georgia to express my condolences, to speak to him, and to share my sorrow and support for his unique nation. And I was struck by what he told me. I was struck by the fact that American diplomats, beyond their pain and danger, still believed so clearly that the liberation of Libya was fundamentally a good thing. And just a few days ago, a US ambassador in my country was proven right by the demonstrations of the citizens of Benghazi that went out to protest against extremist militias and to show their support for peace and prosperity of their own country. I was also struck by the visit last week to the US by Aung San Suu Kyi, the joyous reception America gave her, and her desire to come and tell her story with serenity and determination, a story of progress towards freedom in the face of seemingly impossible odds. 20 months after the act of despair and the tragic death of Mohamed Bouazizi, there are many who doubt that the causes to which Ambassador Stevens gave his life, who doubt the vision of Aung San Suu Kyi, who doubt freedom. Well, I'm totally sure that the skeptics are wrong. A free society never meant society without problems. On the contrary, open society has problems, exposes them, shows them, deals with them, doesn't neglect them, because it gives arguments to all and gives government the chance to be accountable. An open society is a place where improvement is often reached through noisy, painful, and chaotic processes. Montesquieu wrote it a long time ago that in a country, if everybody agrees with the government and everybody agrees with each other, that is not a country, that is just a cemetery. Ladies and gentlemen, I speak from a personal experience. My own country confronted democracy challenges once again this past week when evidence emerged of abuses in our prison system. The facts were sickening and our responsibility was clear. Our reaction was swift and we did what democracies must do. We identified all the responsible, all these responsible were arrested, 2 government ministers have resigned, and we put in charge of prison system the fiercest critic we had of the prison system, the Georgian human rights defender, Georgia's ombudsman. This is how democracies learn. This is how we improve. And this is how my own government has overcome errors and challenges in the past to emerge stronger, more effective, and even more committed to building institutionalized, open society. It is clear there are no shortcuts, to accountability, and no fast-track lines to freedom. Building and maintaining an open society entails painful learning and significant risk-taking. But the conclusion we must draw from Georgia to the events in Myanmar is this: these risks are worth taking. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking to you on the eve of crucial elections in my country, I clearly realize the magnitude of challenges that lie before this body and this troubled world, from the menace of nuclear proliferation to the global warming and poverty. But today, I ask for your attention to the events unfolding in Georgia, because I believe they are part of the broader global question facing us today, whether the quest for democracy and freedom can and will endure. I came here to tell you that Georgia will remain an open society. This is the choice of our citizens, and there is no alternative to this. On October 1st, my nation will vote in parliamentary elections. We look forward to this day and to the opportunity to renew and strengthen the fundamental social contract that allows citizens to freely judge and choose their leaders. Georgia has conducted several elections in recent years, all of which were observed by international observers and all of which were free and fair. We live in a world where yesterday's accomplishments are never enough. And I have committed that this year's votes will be even more free and fair than the previous ones. And we have taken numerous steps to pursue this goal. We have increased public funding and free airtime to all national channels for ads for all political parties, in addition to what they can buy with their own money. We have proposed to all national TV channels a must-carry, must-offer requirement to make sure that all big and small private cable networks broadcast all news based on television they have accepted and proposed. We have welcomed the first televised debate in our country's history between prime ministerial candidates and heads of candidate lists. We initiated a code of conduct to indicate that there will be no political intimidation, the use of administrative resource, vote buying, campaign-related violence, and any form and shape of hate speech that for so many years was used to promote hatred against ethnic and religious minorities. Regrettably, not all actors in the Georgian political landscape share these principles and are purposely working to undermine the legitimacy of Georgia's democratic institutions, how they are perceived at home and in the international community. Our response to deliberate attempts to short-circuit our democracy is straightforward. Democratic, transparent, rule of law-based processes will not be compromised. Not only is this my demand, it's the demand of the people of Georgia. Georgia is a young democracy, and we knew that value comes from the partnerships and engagement with the international community. And in the past, we have once again opened our doors and invited credible international election monitors to visit our country, from the OSCE to the European Parliament, the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, the US Congress, and respected international NGOs. To date, these interim reports of almost every election observation mission has been consistently underscored that these are most competitive elections in Georgia's history. On October 1st, notwithstanding significant attempts to undermine the dynamic, the Georgian people will make its decision. And I'm confident that Georgian democracy will prevail and reject those who seek to close Georgia's doors. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Georgian democracy will prevail if and only if Georgian elections remain as a Georgian process. Today, at this distinguished forum, I am obliged to draw your attention to externally generated security threats to my country. The European Union Monitoring Mission has just announced that Russian forces are presently undertaking mass illegal military buildup inside occupied territory inside Georgia in former territory of South Ossetia, which is within Georgia's internationally recognized border. As we speak, they are bringing offensive weapons and troops inside our borders. The Russian military has made the extraordinary decision to hold large-scale military exercises in the North and the South Caucasus on the eve and around the time of our elections. One cannot imagine a more provocative and irresponsible approach than to mobilize military forces during the crucial moment for any nation's democratic life. First, the involvement of Russia has been for all these months. First, billions of dollars of Russian money came into Georgian election campaign. Lots of other resources were allocated. Now, these are Russian troops trying to be some kind of background players in this process. That is why today I call on all our allies and friends, all members of goodwill in the international community, not to ignore or dismiss this worrisome development. And I would like to use this opportunity to ask the world to pay attention with next few days to speak in a unified voice against these threats and support of our sovereignty, democratic institutions. In short, your vigilance and engagement is required to make sure that the history doesn't repeat itself, that 2012 does not become a repeat of 2008, or especially in 1921, when Russia last time ended our independence and we emerged as a place that was dominated by violence and oppression for 70+ years. We should look at what happened in recent years. We had mass-scale invasion of Russia, which is a success of the Soviet Union in 2008. If you look at history, and we are a country of just 4.7 million people, less than 5 million people. This is 100 times bigger country, well armed. And they've invaded in 20th century many countries in the world. The Soviet Union has invaded Baltic countries, has invaded big parts of Poland, has ended their independence. Soviet Union invaded in 1956 Hungary, killed its president and ended Hungarian independence. They invaded in 1968 Czechoslovakia, deposed the government and ended Czechoslovakia's independence. In 1979, they invaded much bigger country than Georgia, Afghanistan, killed its president within 1 hour and ended its independence. And in 2008, they invaded our smaller country than all the big previous ones I mentioned. They occupied part of its territory, but none of the strategic goals of Russian invasion were achieved. They had 3 proclaimed goals of invading Georgia. First, to depose Georgian government, end Georgian democracy, physically destroy Georgian leadership. These are not my words and conspiracy theories. That's what they've openly proclaimed in every open and closed international forum. Second goal was to shut off energy supply for different regions of the world, to monopolize energy supply in that part of the world where Russia lies. It all totally failed. Georgia is developing, and this energy corridor is developing. Third goal was to stop enlargement of NATO and to stop any kind of inclusion of the region into international organizations. This goal has also failed. So now there is this term that after they failed to physically destroy Georgian leadership, when they failed to deliver any of the purposes of their invasion, and basically they had to stay where they are within occupied territories, and basically most of the world, most of the international organizations call it illegally occupied territory, so that means that they will have to withdraw. Now they are trying to undermine us around this time because they have this feeling of very much business unfinished. And you know, it's not just fate of a small country of less than 5 million that plays out. The fate of the whole post-Soviet space is playing out. 400 to 500 million people. Because Russia failed to destroy Georgian democracy in 2008, countries in Central Asia, Ukraine, Belarus, peoples of Moldova, people in Eastern Europe think, well, after all, freedom is the right choice. And after all, even the smallest free country cannot be undermined and destroyed if it stands strong, united, and if the international community is there to help. So that's a very bad example for lots of them from Russian point of view. On the other hand, because of Georgia's reforms, and because of our openness also towards great nation of Russia, we introduced visa-free travel for tourists from Russia. 1 million Russian tourists will come this year to visit Georgia, and they will take back 1 million stories of successful development, of country with new hospitals, with new cities, with sharply reduced poverty, with country that's going towards universal health coverage, country that has enjoyed double-digit growth, and then we are enjoying this year 8% growth. Country that is looking much better without oil and gas than most of the Russia's region. Indeed, Russia's President Medvedev had to acknowledge twice that during 1 week, in open forum to journalists and his own parliament, that Georgian reforms are so successful that Russia has to study and copy them even if they hate the Georgian leadership. That's the ideological issue. That's why they want us out. That's why they want Georgia off the map, because if Georgia survives and if Georgia continues, then that's a bad example for all the others, including the Russian people itself, from the point of view of present Russian government. Even the way how we reacted to a prison scandal we had recently. And in Russia, these things happen almost every day. They are played on social media in Russia almost every day, and nobody gives a damn there about it. And in Georgia, the fact that Georgia fired, the first case we had, 2 ministers arrested scores of people, it's also a bad example for people who want to suppress freedom. That's why it's so important that Georgian democracy is backed and saved, and then the whole post-Soviet space and that part of the world will move in right directions. We appeal to you today because this very institution, the United Nations, was created to protect and defend the integrity of all nations against the dangers like this one. To make sure that the world will never be again a lawless ocean where big sharks can eat smaller fish without the world to react. With your engagement, we can defeat any and all the attempts to turn the clock back. The main challenge for us is that if Georgia survives and goes forward and advances, then the whole post-Soviet space will advance, and that our people will never go back, and neither the people around us will go back. I'm calling on the world to pay attention and send the right signals. I make this call knowing that what our responsibilities are. In the face of these threats, our commitment to democracy and transparency is more important than ever. We remember the words of Founding Father who said that whoever sacrifices his freedom for security does not deserve any of those two. This is not just our response. This is the best response. Our transformation and the hostility it has generated among those who feel threatened by freedom has continued to make Georgia a test case for the entire region. What's at stake in Georgia today is the very idea that democracy can thrive in our part of the world. Our common legacy from the dark times of Soviet Union, crime, organized crime, and Georgia was hotbed of organized crime. They are all gone from Georgia. Most of them are gone to other countries, including Russia. Corruption, domination, intimidation, oppression, cynicism, and despair. And we condemn to this way of life and this way of government or being governed. No, we can, we should, and we will overcome this legacy. We are doing it in Georgia, and it can be done everywhere else. Will we face strong oppositions? Yes. And we are well placed to say that since our country is regularly threatened with destruction and annihilation, precisely because we choose another path, the path of freedom, the path of transparency and accountability, the path of meritocracy and open society, we know how difficult it is to overcome these forces. But we know we can overcome them. Sovietism and post-Sovietism is not a fate. Organized crime and violence is not a fate. Slavery is not a fate. Limited sovereignty, as Brezhnev once defined it and Putin reshaped it, is not a fate. We are all here, free nations, free peoples, free individuals, and our future depends on us, on what we want and what we do. There is nothing easy or light in what I say when I say this. The Georgian people know the price of freedom, and still they think their freedom is worth it. Because with freedom comes development and happiness, true stability and true peace. Our region will become one day a zone where free people will interact peacefully, where respect will succeed to dismiss. All the peoples, all around Central Asia, Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Moldova and Russia should hold hands together, South and North Caucasus, to defeat all these vices of the past. Powerful voices continue to send the message that democracy, transparency, and accountability are not possible. They see this freedom, meritocracy, and respect for human rights as fundamentally aligned. Georgia has proven them wrong. Our survival story has proven them wrong, just as many of you have in the past. Our efforts, and we've been learning from many people in this hall, our efforts have shown that corruption, intolerance, intimidation, fear, and violence are neither cultural nor inevitable. Advanced democracy is a sign of mature society. It is not easy to govern. Dissent, pluralism, and vibrant debate, what are the threats to others, are strengths to us. Our view is clear. You cannot gain enduring stability at the expense of liberty, and you cannot ensure lasting prosperity by sacrificing individual rights. These shortcuts never succeed in the long run. In every culture, in every society, in every corner of the world, people will ultimately demand the right to choose their own future. Only governments who meet this demand will achieve true stability. The fundamental contract is not always smooth. Governments that commit themselves to these processes must be prepared for turbulence and disagreement. What is often difficult for elected leaders is beneficial for citizens. What is challenging for the ruling parties is often necessary for the state. In pursuing these goals of freedom and accountability, and common efforts must be governed by the rule of law and the commitment to respect these fundamental principles. Violence and intimidation can never be legitimized, and the minority can never forcibly impose its views on the will of the majority. Guns, money, threats, hatred, blackmail, fear cannot be allowed to hijack the process. At the same time, we recognize a potential threat of a majority trampling the rights and liberties of minority. We respond to these threats by protecting the right to dissent. We respond by promoting pluralism. We respond by allowing every voice to be heard, and we respond by the law. I can tell you how difficult this process is, but I can also tell you that no lasting alternative exists. President, ladies and gentlemen, I want to finally share you with my hope and my trust. A few days from now, Georgians from all social, religious, ethnic backgrounds will collectively decide their future in an unoccupied part of our territory. They will express diverse opinions and wishes, and a new future for our nation will emerge. Openness will be further enshrined, transparency will be strengthened, and public accountability confirmed. The main thing that will be confirmed, that Georgia will never go back. It will not be dragged back under any pressure, under any dirty money from the north, under any military threat of military exercises and direct military invasion, in case there are mass-scale disturbances, in case there are some kind of militias emerging as they are menacing us. It's not going to work. According to the European Union, we are the safest country in Europe. We are the least corrupt country of Europe, with strong government institutions that cannot be bribed and cannot be undermined. By constantly renewing the social contract, this is at the heart of every democratic nation, we will prove that democratic principles and practices are here for good. I trust my people, I trust the international community. They will not allow to destroy the will of my people and to destroy my small nation's choice. I stated earlier that democracy is a difficult, sometimes noisy system. It represents challenges to those in and outside government, and it forces leaders to place their trust in society. Personally, I see no credible alternative, and I saw no better reason to take risks. Fear is the paramount characteristic of autocrats, while trust is a definition of democrats. Let us all trust our citizens. Even if autocratic forces much bigger than us are menacing us, the best defense for my country is openness, democracy, transparency, work of the institutions, against all the wills, against all the international mafias, and against socially international pressures that are going against international law. Let us defend these institutions that support, strengthen, and preserve our choice to be open and free. Thank you so much for your attention.